Hi, Democrats. Today is Friday, November 17th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Life. Happy Friday. All right. So I have been, can you guys believe that we're only a week out from Black Friday? How crazy is that? A week out from Black Friday. So this week I have been talking about reasons why we vote, right? Why should we vote? Because I've noticed way too much voter apathy, and I've just been hoping that if I just keep giving you reasons, I'll hit on something that'll make you want to make sure that you vote every time the precinct is open. And so this week I talked Monday about the Nazi sympathizer that sits on the city council at Enid, right? He has been accused of being a Nazi sympathizer. There are pictures of him doing Nazi sympathetic things, and he's never denied it. He's been accused several times, but he sits on the city council, and it's because people weren't paying attention. And he got voted in. Tuesday, I talked about our junior senator, whose name I'm not going to say today, and his incredibly embarrassing performance during a Senate meeting. We knew who he was. But once again, folks believed polls or whatever the reason was, that not enough people showed up, and we had great candidates. We could have had Kendra Horn. I assure you, I have not had a conversation with her since that performance, but I assure you, the thought of challenging someone to a duel is not in her character and who she is. We would not be living through this statewide embarrassment. Wednesday, I talked about the importance of voting the entire ballot, right? The entire ballot. There's folks, we just got to vote the entire ballot, all the way from school board and city council. Those are the folks who affect your life most clearly because they live closest to you, to our state house and our state senate, our statewide. Then let's talk about Congress, U.S. Senate, and president. We get so caught up in president that folks forget about the things that are going to affect their everyday life. And yesterday, I summed it up by saying, we become what we condone. When it is okay for our governor to cheer on folks who are doing illegal activity, cockfighting, when our junior senator is accusing folks, not inviting folks to a fight. And the moment that we say that that's okay, that's who we become. I look at them and I do that, and I feel confident that's not who I am. And that's not who the people that I hang out with are. Because we don't condone that, and we are working every day to hire folks that's not that. We cannot become the corrupt that some of our leaders are demonstrating. But I do want to talk to a leader that I respect. I do want to talk to a leader who doesn't exemplify that kind of behavior. I want to welcome John Waldron to join us once again today.
Hello.
Hello, Representative Waldron. How are you?
Doing fine. And here's today's fun fact. Mark Wayne Mullen and I have the same birthday. The similarities end there.
I don't know if I would own that.
I know. It's hard. We don't exchange cards.
Okay. Wow. So we can't blame it on his zodiac sign.
No. Leos are fine.
It's just him. But do you agree with me? Once we start condoning bad behavior,
yeah, absolutely.
Once we turn a blind eye to bad behavior, particularly bad behavior that's supposed to be representing us, we become that.
Yep. As a public school teacher who tried to teach kids to be respectful in the classroom and relate well to each other, to show up on time and do their homework, it's embarrassing to see our leaders behave like children. And behavior wouldn't condone in a middle school is now becoming commonplace in our committee rooms.
So I think that there's a real difference. Just like you, I'm all over the state talking to folks, and I talk to Republicans because this is the state I live in. Right. I believe that Republicans deserve good representation and access to health care and education and jobs, just like everybody else. So I talk to everybody. Right.
Yeah,
but
sure.
When I'm talking to folks, people say, I don't want to make it about parties. Both parties are the same.
Really?
Both parties are too extreme.
Yeah, yeah. That's an easy way to deny your responsibility, to make a
That's
choice.
exactly what I think about it. I
Mhm.
think it's a cop out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I don't have to really care because they're all the same.
Yeah, citizens have an obligation to think about the issues, and you shouldn't abdicate that responsibility.
Um, do we have extremes in our party? Absolutely. Absolutely, we have
Yeah,
extremes in our party. Um, is it a balanced scale right now?
no, ma'am.
I'm going to say it is not a balanced scale. There are extremists in our party
Sure.
because we're this beautiful
Yeah.
cornucopia of human beings. But this is my right hand. I don't know how it shows up on the
Yeah.
screen, but the amount of folks who feel comfortable being extreme on the
Yeah.
other side largely outweighs what's
Right.
going on.
Yeah. I mean,
You know,
extremism matters, but so does who's wielding power and what's the outcome. Right now, the Republicans are wielding power, and they're doing so in extreme ways.
I like that. So I was going to show a picture real quick
Okay.
because I think that there's a real contrast, right? We have President Biden who stood with
Hmm.
the
Auto
the
workers.
the auto workers, not
Yes.
just like at the
Hmm.
podium, not just in speeches, but he actually went out and stood with the auto workers. And then we have um, the junior senator, because I said I'm not saying his name today, who challenged a union member to a fight. So
Yep.
we have one side who stands with the workers and one side who challenges the workers to stand with them to fight.
As a
I,
teacher, I'll point out that the senator is out of dress code too.
and you didn't watch me on Tuesday, did you?
No, I can only imagine.
Folks made fun of me because I kept saying, and there he was, without his dress coat on. There he
Yes.
was without his dress coat on. He
Yeah.
was out. He was not complying with dress code.
Right. And see, the little things matter because it demonstrates your respect for the norms and the institution. He didn't have respect then, and he didn't have respect when he said, get your butt up. And one stems from the other.
Well, but I think it's a pattern, right? He
Yeah,
didn't have
absolutely.
respect during the withdrawal from Afghanistan when he
Nope.
snuck over there with bags of money.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
that was weird.
rules don't apply to him, I guess, in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
his imagination.
Right. And if you don't care about the rules, well, guess what? The rules protect us, the strong and the weak, from chaos, anarchy, and authoritarianism. And you don't have any respect for the rules. You don't have respect for the ordinary person either.
Right, exactly. Don't have respect for the job. Well, I invited you not to talk about that. I invited you to talk about Moms for Liberty
Oh, yeah.
um, and the Proud Boys.
Oh, yeah.
So, Moms for Liberty have poked their heads up in Oklahoma,
Mhm.
right? You want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, it's a national organization that's been coming into Oklahoma, supplanting and co opting local groups in an effort to disrupt school boards and public education. They're working very closely with everybody's favorite demagogue, Ryan Walters. Today, I think they're probably at this very moment disrupting our textbook adoption process by claiming that all our history books are woke because they're talking about slavery. Moms for Liberty is, ironically, I don't think they're actually moms of public school kids in the school board meetings they're attending, nor are they for liberty. So we've seen this before. You go back to the 1950s and you had moms groups against communism. And it's just an old song being repeated in an effort to disrupt our public schools, probably so that they can take a lot of money out of the public school budgets and put it in the hands of private interests.
I believe that it is to justify. It is to justify the move to move
Yeah. Yeah.
taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Justify why they have to and why it's so horrible.
With demagogues, the message is always the same. Don't trust anybody else. You can only trust us. We're the only ones who know the truth. And we're the only ones who can get us out of the situation. And don't question us because we demand loyalty. Just follow along and you won't get hurt. We know where that road takes us. It's not good for anybody.
Well, I mean, we must learn our history.
Yeah.
We must learn our history. We've seen this movie before.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen this movie before. And so our superintendent of public instruction is aligning himself with these folks.
Yes.
Right.
Very consciously.
and apparently trying to hire uh, a publicist so he can be seen with them more.
He's auditioning for his next job, probably outside of Oklahoma. He's using our public office and our resources to advance his own career, and Moms for Liberty are going to be his allies.
And they're like a PAC who raises money for activities, right?
Yeah.
And he came out of that world. He came
Yeah,
out
and
of that world.
yeah. It's you look a little further. His chief political advisor is in Texas on a state payroll. The Moms for Liberty group is getting out of state dollars. He wants us to pay for a PR person so he can get on national cameras. He's not there for us. He's there for himself. And there's a lot of people who want to come in like modern day what do you call them? Carpetbaggers in reverse, coming into our state to loot and pillage by stirring up all these social issues for their own personal advantage. Ron Walters is just at the center of it, and Moms for Liberty is just the latest window dressing on the whole stinking mess.
I want to ask you about something else. So there are different caucuses or interest groups as part of our state legislature, right?
Mm-hmm, sure.
One of them is the Education Caucus.
Yes, we call them the advocates.
Advocates. Okay. So I have a question. I don't follow everything that our superintendent of public instruction does because I like my sanity.
That way lies madness.
Exactly. So I have a question for you. There are a couple of things that pop up. I have not heard, read, or been able to find anywhere where he's commented on what's happening in Kingfisher.
Yes, that he's been interestingly quiet on that subject.
Doesn't that fall under his umbrella?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's remember that he campaigned by making accusations about similar activities against his primary opponent, another Republican, a fellow Republican, April Grace. He was very loud then about what he claimed was cover-up of abuse. And now he's suspiciously quiet about abuse allegations that are happening under his watch.
And there are several
cases around the state.
Around the state. I think there are several very public, very...
Yeah.
You can't help but see them.
He might need to be focused on what's going on in his own building and in his own state and paying attention to what to the information that should be coming into him instead of looking around the nation and grandstanding. So, yeah, I think he's either asleep at the switch or he's deliberately neglecting his duty.
Well, I think that when they sat down and came up with his communication plan, or frankly, his marketing plan.
Yes.
There was nothing to cover. There was nothing about these kinds of issues. And so he's just acting like it's not there because it's not part of the narrative that he's pushing.
Yeah. Maybe if it was happening in an urban district, he'd be more concerned. Maybe if it was involved people of color or members of the LGBT community, that would be on his radar. You notice whenever he has a crusade, always does seem to come back somehow to the LGBTQ community or people of color, or especially where they intersect. That's where he aims his fire the most heavily. Which
is bizarre to me, right? Because in my mind, you would think along those lines, wouldn't he want to protect the kids from rural communities, being as he is actually natively from a rural community?
Yeah. Is he really interested in protecting the kids? Like there's all this business about CRT. Kids shouldn't be made to feel guilty. I taught for 25 years. Kids don't feel guilty when you tell them about injustices in the past. They blame the older people. And see, that's the problem. His real constituency is people who want to cover up the sins of the past, who don't want their grandchildren coming and asking them, what about slavery? It's never been about the kids. It's always been about this narrow constituency that he wants to stir up for the sake of his own power.
Which just kind of blows me away because there's no one alive who owns slaves.
Right. Yes.
So who are you trying to protect?
I mean, how are you going to teach the Tulsa Race Massacre without connecting it to skin color? How could you teach the Holocaust without connecting it to religion? You know, it doesn't make any sense unless you're trying to make sure that you don't teach kids how to think for themselves.
Well, and also I have to say that it's a lot about dividing. It is a lot about some us and them mentality. You know, let's take care of these kids, not these kids. Let's
Yeah.
pay attention to these kids, not these kids. Let's make a space for these kids, not those kids.
There's always a bad guy.
There's always a bad guy, and that distresses me. That distresses me, but it also highlights once again why we have to vote. He wasn't appointed to the position that he has now.
No, he was elected, and a disproportionate share of his voters voted straight party ticket.
But he was duly elected.
Yes, he was.
He
By
was
one of the
duly elected.
lowest margins of any of the state officials. And that margin, like 100,000 votes, I think, there were many times over enough votes among Democrats who did not show up to the polls to have elected Gina Nelson state superintendent, and then we would be in a very different position today.
Thank you for saying it, because I feel like I need someone else to say it because I say it so much. Maybe if they hear it from a different voice, but that is really it. It's not like there wasn't a choice. It's not like there wasn't a good qualified choice.
Yes, absolutely.
Even if you just look on the other side of the aisle, there was an opportunity to not elect him just out of the primary.
Oh yeah. They could have elected April Grace. She'd have been fine.
They could have elected April Grace. They could have elected what's John's last name?
Cox.
John Cox. They could.
He'd have been fine. I would have enjoyed grumbling about their Republican administrations instead of screaming about this man's administration.
But this is what happens when enough of us think it's not worth it to show up every time the precinct is open.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that not just for, I mean, this happened to be at the same time as a governor's race, but we have to show up every time.
Every time. Look at this. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
That's exactly it. And so I'm going to use this as a shameless plug. Right now, there are two special elections happening. Mm-hmm. There's one happening down in Lawton on the Senate side.
Larry Bush.
State Senate, Larry Bush. We have a qualified candidate who is a businessman, long time in the community. We all know and like Larry. He has a really good shot. If you have somewhere near Lawton and you can door knock for him, that'd be great. If you want a phone bank for him, reach out to the office. We can hook you up with a phone bank. There are ways that you can help him, whether you're in Lawton or not. And then,
by the way, Deborah Jackson, you're right on. Should have been Gina. Sorry to interrupt you.
Hey, Deborah. So then in Edmond, we have a special election on the House side, right? We have an opportunity in the immediate term to grow the House numbers from 20 to 21.
Right.
Go ahead.
It's a seat that's been opened up by a member who's vacating the office after his arrest.
I was going to say bad behavior, but okay.
I will say that was, luckily for the GOP, that was so unspecific that I could have been talking about 3 members of their caucus.
That was specific and true. Okay. But there is a special election. We have two qualified candidates, very personable and knowledgeable in Reagan Roth and Paul Timmons. And so in this instance, and just like in the Senate race, Democrats don't have to vote for the Democrat on the ballot. They have a choice.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Another reason to show up because you have a choice. And this is what helps us recruit more candidates to run when they believe that Democrats will show up and support them.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a beautiful weekend. The weather's going to be great on Saturday. If you have an opportunity to knock a door, please find a candidate. It doesn't have to be in those special elections. There are candidates all over the state that you can help knock doors for. Find a candidate and support them. Have a wonderful weekend. And I'll be back here Monday at 4:15. Thank you, Representative Waldron.
Thank you, Alicia. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Bye.